So let's go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, you'll need a bolster if you happen to have one. If not, no worries though. You can use, I have like a yoga blanket, but you can really just use any firm blanket. So not squishy like a comforter, but something a little bit more firm that you can roll up to take the place of a bolster. This bolster is ginormous. I actually like them smaller, so this isn't a bad size at all. You can do the same thing with a pillow. So even like the pillow that you sleep with at night, if you can kind of fold it so that it's more round or like tubular instead of flat, will be good to go. Or just, you know, anything that you feel like will work for that would be good. So we are going to flow a little bit, especially just to get warmed up. We are also going to do some more yin-like poses. And then as far as the bolster goes, that we'll be using that for more of restorative type poses. I will not go as far as to call this a restorative class, although all yoga is restorative, right? But so in restorative yoga, typically you hold the poses for a really long time, like 10 minutes or so. So in this type of class, if we're flowing and doing yin type poses, again, we probably won't hold those for as long either. And doing restorative poses, we'd get like 2 restorative poses in here, if that. So we'll hold them for much less time, but it'll be based off of that type of posture. So much more relaxing. It'll just be a nice, quiet, easygoing type of practice, okay? So with that said, go ahead and set your bolster and or blanket, whatever you've got going on. Just set it aside for now. We won't use that quite yet, although we will shortly. So keep it handy. And then let's go ahead and come into just a simple seated posture, however you'd like to sit. You can sit on the knees as I am here, or you can come to a seat with crossed legs in an easy seated pose or something of that nature. Go ahead and close down the eyes. Make sure my phone doesn't ring on us. Close down the eyes and sit up nice and tall. Just take a couple deep breaths in and out through the nose. Really starting to connect with your breath so that with your inhales, you feel a sense of energy. Physically, you feel the body lift and lengthen. Whereas with the exhales, it's just the opposite. You feel more grounded. You can sink in without collapsing. Maybe the shoulders relax away from the ears a bit. The neck may soften. And take a moment here to set an intention for your practice. Whatever it is that you need to receive from this time on your mat. If it's simply relaxation, calming, or releasing, whatever that is, just set that as your intention for this practice together so that you can come back to that idea, that thought, that intention. Anytime that your mind starts to wander, you begin to move to your to-do list, right, or things off of this mat. This is all that matters right now. And then let's go ahead and come from here to a tabletop position. We'll just start to warm up a little bit. So with some really gentle movements, let's just start with a few cat-cows. So on an inhale, the belly drops, we look forward, we slide the shoulders back and down. And on each exhale, we'll round the spine as the chin comes close to the chest, and just continue at your own pace. On your next breath, come back to a neutral spine and then start to circle the body around. So specifically notice how the wrists feel. Start off in just one direction, right? Doesn't matter which, we'll get them both. If the wrists feel okay here and you feel like you could use a little more of a stretch, go ahead and start to turn the fingertips outward. See how that feels. And if you still need a little more, maybe start to turn them backward, and perhaps they don't make their way all the way around. But just keep moving here. And then go ahead and switch directions. If you're all the way backward or to some point that does not feel comfortable going this direction, although it shouldn't be too different, then feel free to start to turn them more forward as needed. come back to center here. Fingertips face forward. Curl the toes under and just hover the knees off of the ground, so that the navel pulls up and in. The knees are just barely hovering. If this does not feel okay for your wrists, go ahead and make fists. And we can do that with most postures. Not all, but close. Belly pulls up and in. Knuckles then, in that case, would be pressing down to take pressure off of the wrists. Try and relax your shoulders here if possible. Good. Knees down. Release the hands if you're on the knuckles. Fingertips spread wide, downward facing dog, and take some movement. Walk it out, shake the head. Just let the body move really organically. On an inhale, roll forward into plank pose. And on your exhale, press back, downward facing dog. Inhale, look towards the hands and slowly walk the feet forward until you reach just a really gentle forward fold, perhaps ragdoll. Maybe you're grabbing opposite elbows, allowing for a little movement. Let the head go, let the neck relax. And then keep the knees soft, roll up slowly, vertebrae by vertebrae, until the head lifts up last, at which point then let the shoulders kind of shrug up into the ears and roll down the back, mountain pose, palms forward, shoulders released, pressing into the feet, belly pulled in firmly. Good, breathe and stretch the arms up overhead, exhale, forward fold. Halfway lift. Breathing in, hands maybe come to the shins or thighs. Exhale and release all the way down. We're going to do that again. Breathe and lift up. Exhale, forward fold. Halfway lift, inhale. Exhale, fold and release. Circle the arms all the way up into the air. Exhale, fold down again. We'll halfway lift as we inhale. This time though, let's take plank pose, knees up or down, up to you. Nice big breath in and a big breath out. Stretching long from the crown of the head back into the heels, core engaged, firing up the belly, firing up the breath. And then let's exhale, elbows bending. Maybe we land all the way on the belly. We'll breathe and scoop up the chest cobra or up dog, either one. And then let's drop down to the knees and find child's pose. Arms back along your sides. Roll out the wrists a little bit here. And then come up to tabletop and position, stack those joints one on top of the next. Right leg will go straight backward as the left arm comes straight forward. Exhale, knee to elbow. Inhale, find length. Again, breathe out, squeeze in. Inhale. And then one more, exhale and squeeze. Inhale, find length. And then return to tabletop just momentarily, and then again curl those toes, hover the knees. Pulling navel up and in. And long, slow, deep breaths. And then right into downward facing dog. Take a couple breaths here, sink in through the heels. Yeah, knees can always though be bent if that feels like it helps to release through the low back. Inhale, shift forward, plank pose. Exhale, walk the hands backward until you reach the feet at the back side of the mat. And breathe in, halfway lift, and fold and release. Breathe in, arms all the way up into the sky, and fold back to the mat. Halfway lift, inhale. Exhale, fold and release. Inhale, walk the hands forward, plank pose. Exhale, elbows bend to your own degree before breathing in cobra or upward facing dog. Knees down to the ground, tabletop. Same thing, inhale, left leg goes backward, right arm goes forward, so just opposite sides. Exhale, squeeze in knee to elbow. So 3 of these, breathe and lengthen. Breathe and squeeze. Last one, inhale. And exhale. Good, return to that long position before coming back to tabletop. Good, so let's go ahead and grab our bolster for our first restorative type posture. We're just gonna come into a supported child's pose. So bolster or blanket, whatever it is you're using, follows the length of the mat. Knees will go wide to the outside edges of the bolster, and we'll just simply lay over top. So lots of options for arm positions. You can take them out in front. I usually tend to fold them and rest them up at the top, although my head is still resting on the bolster. You can always prop this up on blocks. That's actually my favorite. Kind of hug around it then. Just get comfortable. Allow your face to turn to one direction. We'll just stay for about a minute or so before turning to the other direction. Notice anywhere in the body that feels like it's really gripping. And maybe you can let go there. Maybe it's just a different positioning of the arms or the knees. And turn to the other cheek, resting on the other side of the head as the neck softens. And maybe here you really start to notice difference between both sides of the body. And slowly press up and out. Again, set that bolster aside. We'll definitely use it in a bit though. So again, keep it close. And find your way to downward facing dog. We'll get into the hips a little bit here, into the legs and the quads and the hip flexors. Take a few breaths and pedal it out. Breathe in, take your right leg up into the air. Exhale, step the right foot up between the hands. If it doesn't land all the way up there right away, don't worry, we'll make our way up there eventually. We'll take our time. Good, and then let the back knee drop down. So what we're looking for here is that the right knee is stacked perfectly on top of the right heel, or at least as close as we can to support that joint. That the left leg is back behind us as far as feels okay. Right? So we want to feel a stretch through the front side of that thigh, or where the hip and the leg connect together, so in those hip flexors. And we're just gonna keep the hands down and we'll sink through the hips. If this feels really intense, you can always let the hips lift up a little bit, although we're attempting to let them drop some. Right? And you can always take little movements too, like maybe just a tiny little movement from side to side, or even twisting through the shoulders just a bit. Right, so all of our limbs stay firmly planted. We're just moving from there. Really use your breath to sink in, to deepen in. And then shift your right hand to the inside of that right foot and walk the foot out towards the edge of the mat. Turn your toes outward and let your knee fall outward any amount for lizard pose. So it's just tipping out towards the right. And you can stand the hands here or maybe lower to the elbows. This is a great place to use the bolster under the elbows too if you need just a slight little lift. Take a couple more deep breaths. See if your exhales can allow you to let go just a little bit more. And just breath by breath, release just a tiny bit more. It's like we're chipping away at that tension, and it doesn't have to happen all at once. Press up onto the hands and walk this right foot over towards the left side of the mat now. So we're working our way into pigeon pose. So that right knee is going to drop down. The left foot is over to the left side, or sorry, the right foot's over to the left side. Shin is as parallel to the short edge of the mat as it can be. And bringing it parallel, we want to flex the foot, and that can feel like a whole lot on that hip. So if it is too much, it doesn't have to be parallel. You can always tuck that foot in a little bit more. The important part is that the shin is going across the mat and that the foot's not all the way in here towards the butt. And then keep the hips level and even. We don't want to fall over to one side. So even if you're really lifted or if you're really low, they're level before we then fold over. You can come to the elbows. You can certainly stay on the hands. Maybe your whole chest lays down onto the ground or the forehead rests on the floor. Notice as you breathe if the body starts to build up tension elsewhere. So focused here on the hips, maybe the shoulders start to tighten, maybe the jaw starts to clench. Try and remember to continue releasing all of that. Slowly begin to make your way out of here, taking any little pauses, little breaks, moving however you need, right? And maybe you make your way to down dog and walk it out a little bit, or you can always come to tabletop and flow through a few cat-cows. And then from here, though, we're going to make our way down onto our belly. And then once you're on your belly, stretch your arms straight out to your sides. So my arms under a chair because I'm a little short on space, but come to the belly. Head can just rest at center here for a moment. And then we're going to pick up this right foot and we're going to roll towards the left, like we're trying to touch the right foot to the ground on the left of us, although if we don't go that far, that's okay. What we're looking for is a stretch through this left shoulder and openness through the chest. Good. And take it super easy here. And then we're just going to do the same thing to the other side. So we're not staying for very long on either side. We're moving a little bit. And then we'll change it up here in a second. And just take one more each side, so that both sides are even. And then come back to center, hands beneath the shoulders. Press up onto tabletop. And look over your right shoulder to your right hip, lengthening the left side body. And then do the same over the left shoulder to the left hip, lengthening the right side. And come back to center and back to downward facing dog. Inhale, take your left leg high. And step that left foot up between the hands, dropping the right knee down. So again, knee on top of heel. Take your time, even if you have to like pick it up and set it up there, that's better than not. Sink down into the hips so that you feel it again through the front side of that right thigh this time. And then you can find stillness or little movements. Just really allowing yourself to get into that hip. Or into the hip flexors, into the quads. And then left hand moves to the inside of the left foot as the left foot walks its way outward. The toes turn out, the knee falls out any amount. And it could just be a little tiny baby amount. It could be quite a bit. And then you can stay on your hands or come to the elbows, or maybe it's just halfway down. So maybe you just lower a little bit. What we're looking for is that the hips keep dropping. A lot of times what I see is the hips are way up here, and that's just because they're tight. So see if you could walk this left foot out further, bend further through that knee, and drop in as much as you can. And it doesn't have to be perfect. We want it to feel essentially the same on everybody, and that means it won't look the same, and that's okay. So find your space here in lizard pose. And again, just like we did in pigeon, try and relax the shoulders, try not to clench the jaw, try and stay nice and easy through the whole body while we're so focused on relaxing through the hips. Make sure we're not creating tension elsewhere. Start to come out of this really slowly, and we'll move our way into pigeon by walking the left foot across the mat over to the right. Once it's there, we'll drop the left knee down. We want it as as parallel as we can, and that doesn't have to be parallel or anywhere really close to it even. Mine feels much better on the other side than it does on this side, so they look different. Hips are level though, we're not dropping to one side, we're coming forward while the hip points both face the same direction. Coming down as far as feels good, maybe to the elbows, maybe you stay lifted, or perhaps you place something underneath the elbows like your bolster or your blanket so that you're still a bit propped up. Come up onto the hands, nice and easy, and same as before, take any pauses or movements as you come out of this posture. Maybe you come to tabletop or down dog and just kind of move freely. Work out the kinks. We'll meet back down on our bellies. Very similar posture. This one is actually safe for the shoulders to go deeper into it though. So we're going to bend the elbows this time. We're going to take them out like goalposts so that we've got a nice straight line from shoulder to elbow, a nice straight line forward from elbow to hand. Both sides are the same. That's our starting point. And then we'll change that a little bit. So let's then push into this left hand. The left elbow will go up as we roll over to our right side. So we keep our right arm in that goalpost position. Nothing changes there. This left leg can get a bit awkward depending on how far we're going. So we can definitely stack one on top of the other. It can even come in front of it to balance and help position. It can step behind it like it did before. So just see what works good for you. Right? And there is no perfect place. No matter where I place it, it does feel a tiny bit awkward at least. Take just 2 more breaths here on this side. And then we'll come back to center. Left elbow will come down to the floor. Right elbow will push up into the air as we roll over toward the left side. So left arm stays in this goal post position. Legs can get awkward, so do what you need to. I usually like to nestle the top leg behind the bottom leg and position that way as opposed to sticking the knee up in the air. That just feels like extra work to me. Two more breaths here as well. Coming when you're ready then back to the belly. Sliding both hands beneath the shoulders and pressing up through tabletop. We'll actually come to a seated position. We'll need our bolster for this, and for all of the remaining postures, we'll only have a couple. So as we come into a seated position, we're going to call this a Z-sit. Let's take our right leg in front. Our right leg shin is parallel straight in front of us. Left foot comes back behind with the left knee connecting to the right foot. So from here, we'll take our bolster or our rolled up blanket, whatever we've got going on, and we'll connect it straight out from our right hip. From here, I'm going to twist my upper body toward the bolster. Legs don't move at all. They might shift a bit, but we're staying really planted in this position. Upper body turns toward the bolster, and then we lay down over top of it. Left hip is going to lift up here, and that's normal. We're not trying to keep that planted any longer, just same positioning. Chest lays over top as best we can, as even as we can. Now with the head, if you turn it toward the left, resting on the right cheek, it's more gentle. If you want to go deeper into a twist, as long as it feels okay on the neck, then turn the head toward the right side. Take two more breaths on this side. And when you're through, come back up slowly to a seated position. These poses, if we're practicing more restorative type yoga, can certainly be held for much longer, and I would encourage you to do that. I'm just running shorter on time. So we'll come into the other side, switching sides with the legs. And then bolster connects straight out from the left hip. We turn the upper body to the left and we lay over top of the bolster. To make it more gentle, we rest on the left cheek. To make it more intense or just a little bit deeper, we turn the head and rest on the right cheek. Take again two more deep breaths. And then whenever you are finished with your two breaths, again press up to a seated position. Scooch that bolster away just a little bit. We just need a tiny bit more room. And come to a seated cross-legged position, some form of easy seated pose, lotus, half lotus. Sit up nice and tall. Take a big breath in as the arms extend up overhead. And then let's twist to the right side. The right hand will come behind, Staying in close to the body, positioned on the floor, the left hand will cross over. Let's use both of those hands, not to crank really hard, but just to give a gentle little pull and look over the right shoulder as we come into this twist. Continue pulling then with the left hand against the knee. Raise the right arm up into the air. So we're still twisting. I'm not twisting any less, but I've released that hand. And then in addition to the twist, we'll take a side bend. Everything leans toward the left knee. Pause here and breathe. Release that right hand back down to the ground behind you, coming back to the original twist. Breathe in, arms up overhead, chest faces forward. And exhale, let's take hands down through heart center, and let's go ahead and actually change the cross of the legs before we go to the other side. So whatever one's on front or in front, take to the back, or on top, take to the bottom. And then breathe in, arms up. Breathe out, twist to the left side, left hand behind, right hand to the left knee. Use both of those hands to give just a gentle little pull. Inhale, left arm goes up, but we're still twisted. And then we lean and reach over toward the right knee. Almost like you're trying to rest your right temple on the right knee, but maintaining this length through the left arm. Releasing left hand back down behind. Inhale back to center, arms overhead. And exhale, hands to heart center. Good. And then let's go ahead and take our bolster. We're going to let it follow the length of the mat, right up against the tailbone, knees bent here initially, and then let's lay down over top of it. So if we're using a blanket especially, it may not be long enough, and that's okay, we can still make it work. What we want is our head resting. So even if it's on the very edge of it, we want our head on the blanket or bolster. Maybe we need to scoot down further away from it to give ourselves that space, and that's okay. So finding that position, knees then are bent, feet together. Let's let the knees open wide. Arms to the sides, palms face the ceiling, letting the elbows bend. Maybe they rest on the floor, maybe not. So that the shoulders can release back and down and the chest is more open now. Close down the eyes. Feel yourself breathe right into the center of the chest. So with each inhale, it should feel like the center of your chest, your heart center, grows a little bit bigger, becomes a little bit more open. And with every exhale, you sink in just a bit more. This is one of my favorite postures to remain in for a bit of time. It's really great, especially if you spend a lot of time sitting, or especially if you're sitting in front of a computer or driving, and maybe posture isn't the greatest. Just slowly helps to undo some of that. So I would encourage you to stay here for as long as you would like. Maybe take a little shavasana in this position for the next few minutes, 5-10 minutes even. But I will leave you here for today so that you can remain for as long as you would like. Thanks for joining me today and letting me share in your practice with you. Namaste.